last time we tried to understand what was the situation in India, rather British India in 1930 onwards and during that time or even before the time. So we saw that Indians are illiterate, they are exploited, they live in very poor conditions, they are farmers, peasants, and that's where Premchand comes in with his writings. In Hindi literature, he has earned a lot of name and fame, and he was actually a very influential writer. And you can see how much of his work has been translated into English. And that brings us to a point where the writer's views have been discussed widely, and to some extent that he is also criticized. Because what we are going to discuss today will have lots of impact on our understanding of Indian society. Now, the first question that comes to my mind, because Kafan, death, Kafan relates to death, shroud relates to death. And we are always interested, whatever the religion we come from, we are always interested in the concept of heaven and hell, right? So the first question that comes to my mind is this: who is the creator of hell and heaven? Let's see who has this idea of creating this hell and heaven for human beings. Who do you think? Who has created hell and heaven? Somebody wanted to say something, but I could not listen. So please come again.
Sir, the human itself created the concept of hell and heaven.
Okay. So can you explain what is heaven and what is hell?
Sir, according to human context, hell is sin, like a place for people who committed sin, and heaven is for those who have done too much of good things for people around them.
Okay. So it's again good versus evil. Those who are good will go to heaven, and those who are sinners will go to hell.
Sir, but there is a glitch.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Shiv, go on.
Now, where will newborn baby go if the newborn baby just died?
Okay, yes, that's a very interesting question. Okay, because he has just he is just born, so where he will go, hell or heaven? We don't know. Even when I die, I don't know where will I go, hell or heaven? I don't know. Even nobody knows where do you go after you die. You don't know. So why we are so obsessed with this concept of hell and heaven? I don't know. Definitely God has not created hell and heaven. It's human beings, as Harshita rightly said. So
we are God, so we created God.
Yes, that's right. That human beings, a sociologist would say that human beings created God, and then they created in the name of God. Like true democracy will always have a power in the hands of Prime Minister, and the president will be a rubber stamp, and he has actually no power. So God has actually no power. All the power is with human beings, and human beings exercise their power to send somebody hell or to heaven, right? So it's like democracy. We live in that democratic world where hell is for sinners and heaven is for all the good works that you have done in your life. So who does get a seat in heaven? I think we have answered that. Who goes to hell? With that we have also answered. Then we can think of what is social injustice, because that's what you are going to read in the story called Kafan, the Shroud. What do you think is social justice? Let's understand first what is justice, And then we try to understand what is social justice. And then let's go towards social injustice and injustice in general. What do you think? What is justice? Joel has joined, and he is remains silent. So, okay, what is happening? Oh, sorry. Yeah, okay. So, what do you think? What justice is?
To be fair.
Okay, okay. Is our society fair?
Not
Not at
at
all,
all.
sir.
No, sir.
Not at
No,
all.
sir.
My goodness. Oh my goodness. Are we talking of India or the rest of the world?
Entire world, sir.
As of now, the whole world, sir.
Okay, the entire world is unjust. Wow, that's interesting. Who makes this?
Oh, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, because
Go on.
people judge by mass, like majority. They judge
Yes.
out of majority,
Yes.
not individual. That's why
Okay.
there will be no individual justice. There will be always
Mass
one versus
justice.
all justice.
Okay, one versus all. Okay, okay. Then justice means a fair chance, right? Then injustice means unfair chance or unfair things that the society members do to each other. Now, who is going to define what is fair and what is unfair? What is justice and what is injustice?
The creator of it. Obviously humans.
Okay, so like a true democracy, all the power rests in the humankind. So humankind will define what is fair and what is unfair, right? So
So
that's
it's always
Not entire humankind, sir, but only the specific parts of it,
okay.
according to themselves and their practices they follow.
Okay, now let me pause here and ask this question. Who is this society? I don't understand. When we say them, that means are we not included in the society or the third person plural them? Are we not part of that? Your silence says everything. We are part of that justice. We are part of that unfair treatment. We are part of that them. And we are part of the entire system that we have seen or we are going to see. And
it,
our general, yes, Harshita.
sir, it's like if we commit a mistake, we will understand that ये मैंने इस वजह से किया था. And when someone
But
else,
who is judge? Sorry, sir.
Let's listen to each other and then jump into the argument. Yeah, Harshita, continue.
and when others commit mistake, we become the judge.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, Shiv.
But who will judge that it is a mistake we made? Apart from ourselves. Like, so example, like being a Hindu and Brahmin, I'm not even supposed to eat eggs.
Yeah, okay.
And,
Okay.
and at some places and some other religions, egg is considered like something religious, something sacred.
Okay. It may be not sacred, but a part of their daily meal. And that's absolutely fine, quote unquote,
Yes, sir, yes,
from their perspective.
That always comes down to one thing, the perspective.
Yeah. Now, when we say perspective, it has its connotations and denotations. We have already talked about it in the first year, so I don't want to repeat those. But what perspective the story is going to tell us, we are going to discuss it. Now, the last question that Premchand's work will ask us is this: is our society sensitive enough for the pain and agony? I'm not talking of poor or rich, but the question is very general. Is our society sensitive enough for pain and agony?
सर वो अपने हिसाब से मतलब अपने मतलब के हिसाब से सब कुछ फील करेंगे.
Okay, so again, it boils down to an individual choices, right? And rightly said by Oscar Wilde, if I don't forget it, that human beings are one of the most hypocrites people, creature on this planet. And we, human beings, have exploited everything and anything that has come to us by the grace of nature, not the God, okay? So I don't say that I'm non-believer in the God, but whatever has come to us, we have exploited to an extent that we have destroyed it. And by destroying it, we have become insensitive towards our environment. And if we are insensitive towards the environment, obviously the answer to the question that is our society sensitive enough for the pain and agony, let's say towards human, we are not. In general, how can a human being can commit crimes against other human beings? How can we judge somebody's action with our context, with our understanding? How can you kill as a human being, another human being, or another living being, or even an element of nature? So maybe we can say that today's generation or the contemporary times have lost sensitivity. I'm not talking and generalizing everybody, but a major chunk have lost that sensitivity. If you are sensitive enough, you might not use plastic. If you are sensitive enough, you will try to protect Mother Nature as much as you can. Consciously, unconsciously, intentionally, unintentionally. You start respecting life in whatever form it is. You start respecting existence of other beings, wherever they are, whatever they are. And that sensitivity is declining gradually. I'm not saying 100 out of 100 people in the classroom or in the society are insensitive, but majority of the people. And there are few who are sensitive enough. But then, as in democracy, majority wins. So these are some of the questions that, the sensitive questions about life, about human beings, how we treat death and life will be encountered in Premchand's story. If you have not read, I would request you to read the story because I may not read all the 11 pages that I have posted. And it is one of the most interesting translations that you will ever read. Okay. As I said, that Premchand was one of the most immensely influential writer in the Hindi belt. When I say immensely influential and writer, what I mean to say is that their role in the society is to awaken the masses through artistic and literary creation. And Premchand does it. And when you do something as a writer, there are always two possibilities. Either the society is going to accept what you are saying, or they will criticize what you are trying to say. In Premchand's case, both are true. He has been hailed for his writings, and he wanted to bring that change in the society through his writings, through his literary pursuit. But then, as I said, his writing has been criticized. Why it is criticized, we'll see in this sessions. But the primary role of a writer is to bring that change. It's not just he is writing for the sake of writing. Any writer, if they start writing for the sake of writing, he loses the charm. Literature is not for just changing the society, but changing the society in an entertaining way. If you are just wanting to change the society, you will change the way you write. Arundhati Roy is a best example. She entertains less and she awakens you the most. Taslima Nasreen, she entertains you less, but she awakes you more. So there are differences in writers, and these are revealed with which their instrument they write, the motive of their writing. When Premchand writes, he writes about the peasant life, the people who work in farms, the people who are exploited and deprived. Now, we have seen that how rich can exploit poor in the previous session. So he writes about those people. He writes about untouchability. Now, we may ask, is it real or is it imaginative? But then, what is real untouchability and what is imaginative untouchability? When the word untouchability comes to your mind, you are reminded of the class that you are not supposed to touch or play or to mingle as a society. They are the class who will live outside the village, on the outskirts of the village. They have all the resources outside the village. Even the well, the tap water is not available to them. And we have seen that in last year while we were reading Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar's autobiography, Waiting for Visa. The question is, who creates this segregation in the society that they are touchable and they are untouchable? I think we have discussed that, writers' role in the society. Then these untouchables have been categorized or classified, or let's say compartmentalized as Dalits, pigeonholed as Dalits. They are Dalit community. But then the question is, what is Dalit? Mahatma Gandhi has renamed them Harijans. But again, do they come out of this segregated community or a section of the community from the entire country? Has this renaming uplifted them? Gandhi has well defined Harijan as those who are people, those people who come from Hari, the bhakts, the devotees of Hari, Bhagavan, God. Hari means God, you know, and Jan means human beings. But then why even today, when you read newspaper, local newspaper, you read that he is Harijan and he was beaten to keep the mustache on. You are Harijan, so you cannot have an Instagram account. You cannot post on a Facebook. We are living in 21st century and a decade has already gone. 2 decades are gone. What do you mean by Dalit? They are oppressed ones, but then who is the oppressor? They are silenced, then who are the people who silenced them? Who decided that they are Dalits? They are considered impure because their food habits are different from others. They eat meat, but doesn't it mean that rest of the community in Indian society eat meat? 69%, according to a report, 69% of Indian population today is non-vegetarian. That means 69 out of 100 people are eating non-veg food. And if Dalits are considered because of their eating habits impure, then 69% of the population of today's India is Dalit, if we take only that measure into consideration. So this is highly contestable area, highly debatable area. Who is Dalit? What is Dalit? They are uneducated, they are poor, they are illiterate. Who has not given them the opportunity? And why the opportunity was not given to them? The myth comes to rescue for those who have created, and the myth says that it was Brahma who created the class system, the Varna system. Those who are Brahmin came from the mouth of the Brahma. Those who are Kshatriya came from the shoulders. Those who are Baniyas or Vaishya, they came from the stomach part of the Brahma. And those who are Shudra came from the feet of the Brahma. Now, I'm really a believer in science, but I also believe in religious scriptures. But my logical argument is it possible to have birth or evolution like this myth? Darwin has been a scientist, evolutionary scientist, who has busted all the myths in Christianity. And so does for the Hinduism. It's impossible, according to my understanding, that you can come out of mouth. Then I can give birth to anybody through mouth.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, question.
Yeah,
Question
go on.
means, how do we know that? How do you know that they are even the gods with feet, mouth, and like human characteristics and human voice?
Yeah. Now,
We don't even see them daily.
I know, Shiv, and that's where I am questioning, and that's where the myth comes into picture. We start believing fables. We start believing in imaginative stories. The story is being told with a purpose, an agenda. A myth is created with an agenda. What is that agenda? We cannot discuss at this point, because otherwise we will divert from what we are discussing. We are discussing Premchand Shroud, where Dalits have been the part and parcel of the story. We can discuss it later on when we finish our discussion on Shroud. But then there are critics who say that Premchand's Kafan is an anti-Dalit writing. Now, what do you mean by anti-Dalit? Those who do not, those who are opposite to Dalit, can we call them anti-Dalit? Is this story anti-Dalit? We can ask this question. I don't like you. Does that mean that I am anti-Shiv, or I am anti-Joel, or I am anti-Priya? Does it mean that? I don't like US because of its capitalistic policies. But does it mean that I am anti-US? I don't like killings on the name of religion. Does it mean that I am anti of those religious communities? I am anti the socialistic policies which says that wealth should be equally distributed, which I don't see happening. Does it mean that I am anti-socialist? So before anything is termed anti, we need to understand the term in its full context. We need to have logical arguments. We need to have a clear evidence that this is the case. Again, we can, when we say I am anti-Dalit or I am anti, this story is anti-Dalit, are you to judge? Who has given you right to judge? We can put both the perspectives on the table and we can live it to the society, live it to the reader. Maybe that is the correct way. Instead of compartmentalizing things, instead of pigeonholing things, instead of labeling things, instead of classifying things, we put picture in front of your reader. This is what I have seen, the right and the wrong. Now you decide, according to your conscience, if it is there. So Premchand does this in his story, in the story called Kafan, the shroud, or almost any of his work. But then we become judge. Okay, Premchand is anti-Dalit, or Premchand is for the Brahmin society, or Premchand has depicted Dalits in a different way. No. What I mean to say is this. Look at the way he is writing. He is a writer. He wants to bring change in the society through awakening. Maybe his purpose, you don't know what his intentions are. If he has said somewhere that while I was writing this story, I have actually seen this happening, like a father and a son going to a bar after daughter-in-law's death. She was in pain and agony. If he has said that actually I have seen a family like this and it's real family, then also can we generalize things? Are we not generalizing everything? Like Shakespeare said, frailty thy name is woman. It's a gross overgeneralization. Similarly, when Rama abandons Sita just on the tail of a dhobi, a laundryman, he is generalizing, he is overgeneralizing. So when do we come out of overgeneralization? We are not sure, because it's easy to judge right and wrong. This is right, this is wrong. Because when you judge, you don't apply that critical thinking. If you apply critical thinking, you will come to know, okay, this has 3 pros and this has 3 cons, so I don't see a possibility of judging equally. And that's what we are supposed to do as an educated, literate people of the world, of the 21st century, instead of making gross generalization. If somebody is reacting to you, for example, there is a student in our college who will always come up with some odd questions at odd hour. Do you need to overgeneralize that student? That student is an obsessive student with all odd types of questions? No, not all the students are like that. So if we start overgeneralizing things, we may miss a point in the story. And that's what the purpose of being critical of any story is. So instead of pigeonholing, defining, judging without any critical understanding, I think we need to reapply our brain in order to come to any conclusion. And always remember that don't have a tight compartmentalized conclusion. Leave a scope for an air to come in, a fresh air of ideas to come in. Because when we start concluding, we reflect our interpretation. And our interpretation is always be biased if we have not taken into consideration the entire perspective of the time, the context, the environment, the writing, the place, the characters, the human beings, the reality, the imaginary. We have to be very careful in our interpretation, because when we start interpreting, people will make generalization, and that is the politics of interpretation, the politics of language. In communication skills, we have learned last time that how you can be easily misinterpreted, and how the language will give you the flavor of something else that you never intended. So it is always crucial to keep in mind that the writing and the politics always go hand in hand, and we have to tread very carefully to present our interpretation. The point of views, the first and the third, we have seen last time in the understanding of literary terms, that the first point of view, that means I am telling you the story, it has a different meaning when I use as a myself as a third person. Third person narrative is omnipresent. He knows everything about the character. Is it possible to know everything about a character? Do you know everything about yourself? Spiritually, physically, economically? You don't know. So how can a third person point of view be an omnipresent as a narrator? What kind of technique the writer, at least in Premchand's Kafan, what kind of point of view he is presenting? And you might have seen that he starts the story by using the names of the character. That means third person character. So he's using third person omnipresent narrative technique to write Kafan. And that does mean that Premchand knows about this. And when we say knows everything about these three characters, he becomes a godlike figure. So, આપણે ગુજરાતીમાં કહેવત છે ને, જ્યાં ન પહોંચે રવિ ત્યાં પહોંચે કવિ. So this way, the narrator in this story reaches to a point where even the God does not reach. And what does it mean? That the poet and Premchand in this context creates another world with his imagination. Now these characters, Madhav, Gisu and Budia, are they imaginary characters or real characters? From what we have read, a couple of students have read the story. So what we have read, it seems that they cannot be real characters. They are imaginary characters. They are fictional characters. And if they are fictional characters, can be generalized based on that. Also, we have tried to understand in the previous session that how caste played an important politics in 1930s. So in Premchand's Kafan, you have upper caste versus lower caste, which brings us to understand why people write about Dalits and what is the primary motive of Dalit writing. Dalit writing is to liberate Dalits from Brahminical hegemony. I think we have less than 1 minute, and I'm not going to elaborate on that. We'll do it in the next class, because anytime the class will get over. So I'm stopping to share. So if you have any questions, any comments, you can use this time. And if you have not read the story, please do read it. I have posted in the Google Classroom, and you can view the link for the YouTube story, where